Welcome to the Ladies in Leadership podcast, where we feature strong female Jewish voices. Today, I am so honored to have a very distinguished guest with me in the studio. It is Tal Heinrich, the spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister. Welcome, Tal.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here today.
It's really such an honor to have you. I love looking at a young, beautiful Jewish woman that has such a special position as the spokesperson for the Prime Minister of Israel.
Thank you so much. I'm not so sure about the young, but if this is how you feel, you're entitled for your position.
Just about the same age as me. So
okay.
I'm going to call you young. People say to me, wow, you have 11 children, but you look so young. And I tell them, well, I am young.
Right.
I am young.
Right.
I'm 40, but I am young.
Almost there.
I'm feeling like I'm living the best years of my life right now.
That in a very difficult period, we should say. So, yes, well, I got called up on October 7th. You know, in Israel, everyone is doing their part right now. Not only in Israel, also, you know, American Jewry here. Everyone is somehow doing something as part of this national effort. We are in a very difficult time right now, but the silver lining is the unity that you see and the mobilization of everyone in the society, one way or another, to contribute to this, to defeating the enemy, and to carry on and live life. That matters too, you know?
That's the end goal.
That's the end goal. No, but I'll just describe to you something. You know, I go back and forth between the U.S. and Israel because I'm based in New York, and I got called up on October 7th, and we'll get to this at some point, and I'll explain the chain of events. But my mother was telling me when I was in Israel in the first few weeks of the war that she really wants to go somewhere and volunteer and cook for the soldiers because many people are doing that right now. But she says, with you, with your nephew, I have no time to do this. I'm running around, you know, I need to take the baby, to go do shopping. I told her, you know what? That's exactly what you should be doing. That counts. Everything counts.
Right. Sometimes we think we have to be useful. We need to be helping someone else.
Yes.
But meanwhile, doing what we need to do in our own homes with our own families is actually exactly where we need to be. And the most important thing we could be doing.
100%. You keep your house together.
Right.
You carry on with your routine. Mm-hmm. That's a win.
Absolutely.
We take nothing for granted.
And I think that's the key, really, taking things for granted. I think that for so many of us, there were so many things that we took for granted until October 7th. I know for those of us in the States, we felt so comfortable. We were so sure that anti-Semitism was something that was kind of, you know, in our past. We didn't think that, you know, it was something that anybody would have the gall to walk out in the streets in public and, you know, protest about or make any sort of, you know, announcements of killing Jews or their hatred for Jews. So I think that's a big one for a lot of us. But even specifically in Israel, I think that there was so much that we were taking for granted in Israel too. Just this sort of calm and peace that we never really believed that such a thing could happen, that they could attack us like that in our homes, in our beds.
A false sense of security, unfortunately. Many people were disenchanted. And I'll tell you this, our enemies, for them, the War of Independence of Israel, 1948, what they see as the Nakba, the Palestinian disaster, it never ended. Mm-hmm. They view Israel, unfortunately, an overwhelming majority there on the other side, as some temporary entity. And this is what many Israelis fail to realize, that Israel exists, yes, full stop. We will never go back to being stateless and defenseless again. But the other side didn't get it. Mm-hmm. They didn't. There are many reasons for that. We can take a deeper dive into that later. But I think many Israelis understand that now. And this is why you see this very wide consensus in the country behind the goals of this war that we didn't start, we didn't want. Hamas has dragged us into as we define them. Which is obviously to bring back all hostages home, to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime in Gaza, and to make sure that Gaza will never ever pose a terror threat to us again. Israeli society, from left to right, center, everyone is really united behind these goals. And behind the people on the ground, the home command and the front lines that are carrying this mission statement out.
You know, from us on this side of the ocean, it definitely feels like there's a very special type of unity going on in Israel. We know that before October 7th, it was very, very far from that type of feeling, very far. And it seems like there's just this brotherly love, sisterly love that everyone is feeling from all factions, from all walks of life. Everyone just feels just like we have this one mission to do together. And it's especially incredible to see the spirituality that is coming into play, specifically with the soldiers. We see so much. The soldiers in Gaza that are putting on tefillin. There is this whole, effort of getting, the women to light the Shabbos candles, and you're just seeing them before going out to battle, saying Shema Yisrael, and the prayers and the way they go out with the Sefer Torah. It's unbelievable. I mean, to see this like a renewed spiritual energy going on in Israel is just, for those of us back here, it's really inspiring and really, really incredible to see. I'm wondering if that's just from our side of the screen, or is that actually what's happening on the ground?
No, it's actually happening on the ground. And in our conversation before the cameras started recording, I was telling you that you also, I'll show you. You also see this.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Well, this happened also on day 38 of the war. Many Israelis, are planning families, expanding the families, getting married, getting engaged. You see this all around. And what also moves me is some of the stories of the hostages who came back as part of the first framework that we had through international mediators on around day 50 of the war. And we hope that we will see another diplomatic progress, let's say, of this kind soon.
God willing, very soon. Yes.
We see that some of them were talking about the spirituality that kept them going while in captivity, even saying, well, if I get out of this, I'm going to do this mitzvah or take upon myself to do that down the road, which is really, really inspiring when you think about that. And what also never ceases to amaze me is how some of the people who are hurting the most in the country are the ones giving us most strength to carry on in the mission. It is really unbelievable if it's letters that soldiers who fell in battle wrote before they went into Gaza that we will read in case they fell in battle. One soldier, Elkanah Wiesel, if you saw what he wrote, he is one of the soldiers who were killed when the buildings collapsed inside Gaza. There was an accident. So the words that they wrote, or the mothers who are hurting the most when their children, when their spouses are held in Gaza, some of their words when they tell us, or soldiers who were injured, when they tell us, don't stop, do what has to be done, keep us safe. That is amazing. Specifically, one soldier that I know, my fiance knows, the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, went to visit him in the hospital. He got severely injured, problem with his leg, undergoing treatment at the hospital. The defense minister comes to him and he tells him, sir, I'm not going back to Gaza, ever. But if you send me to fight Hezbollah in the north,
Oh, my
I'll go
goodness.
back.
Oh, wow. But he's done with Hamas.
No, I'm just saying. No, but really, and you saw,
Yeah. Wow.
for example, the Fauda star, Idan Ahmedi, who was also injured as part of an accident that took place when they tried to dismantle one of the tunnels there. And he gave a press conference and he told his wife, well, if the Lord would grant me the powers, I'm sorry, my dear wife, but I would go back and fight these brutal monsters, these terrorists.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to remember. There was a story of a mother that I'm trying to remember if her son was one of the hostages. I think her son is one of the hostages. And she was saying, I love my son, but I love my country and the people in it. And she was really advocating not to make any sort of deal that would jeopardize the lives of citizens. She was saying, I remember now, she has a younger daughter. She has, the son is older, maybe a teen or in his 20s, and she has a little daughter who's 5 or 6 years old. And she said, by making some sort of like a prisoner swap that's going to bring in more dangerous people, you're jeopardizing the life of my little girl and other citizens. Does that sound familiar?
So there are different opinions. You know, the families of the hostages, they're from all walks of life in Israel. They have different opinions.
Of course.
All of them want to see their loved ones back 100%. And our job is to make sure that the plight of the hostages is the top of minds, not only in Israel, because it is the top of minds in Israel.
Right.
If it's for the government, the prime minister, the soldiers on the ground, the Israeli public, everywhere, in the media. But we need to make sure that the plight of the hostages is at the forefront of every international discussion about the war.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's overlooked. I mean, in too many times it's overlooked, because when I go on air, and that's my job, to give interviews to the foreign media, to American media, international outlets, and speak for the prime minister's office. But honestly, I speak for Israel. It is my job to remind everyone that the number one humanitarian issue in Gaza right now is the plight of the hostages. There's nothing more humanitarian than that. So to your point, many families of the hostages, well, they think differently about the war, about the strategy of what is right and what is wrong to do in order to bring their loved ones back. But we know that the only thing that works against Hamas is heavy military pressure. And that is what created the conditions back in November to exert diplomatic pressure and find this framework by which we saw the release of some of the hostages. Obviously, that is not enough. We want to see all of them back home.
I think that a big, scary part of the story that has happened since October 7th, and I can say for myself as someone who spends a considerable time on social media, is seeing the gaslighting that is happening.
They call it Gaza lighting.
Oh, gosh, I love that term. That's so perfect, because that's exactly what it is. Just to see you literally see a hostage telling her story, and people saying lies, it's not true. And I can just imagine that someone for you in this position that's busy trying to tell the truth all the time, and this is what you're getting and the kind of questions that you're being asked. You know, we were talking about before, the most outrageous things that some of these newscasters can come up with, and they can actually say these things like they, is just shocks you to your core.
Indeed. It's not just about speaking the truth. It's about reminding people of the truth, because people tend to forget why we're in this.
Right.
Or, in some instances, people think, oh, okay, October 7th happened. Israel went into war in Gaza, and here's what Gaza looks like today. Also forgetting that all the while, there are like 14,000 missiles that have been raining on our cities and communities from the south and the north, both Hamas and Hezbollah and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is the second largest terrorist group in Gaza. So, the Israel and the war are constantly in the media headlines. But the problem is that the news cycle within it is super, super short. And for example, for many, many days, we were operating in Gaza City, in the area, in the vicinity and around and underneath the Shifa hospital, where there was a big command and control center of Hamas. And the media kept urging us, well, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? The moment we released abundant evidence, we even took reporters there. I think that's when the hostage deal was starting to take shape. The media attention already shifted to another story.
Gosh.
Or, for example, now on last Friday, the International Court, the World Court, the ICJ, published its provisional measures that basically said that Israel should be doing what it's already doing in Gaza, and they didn't tell us to stop the war, stop defending yourself, and stop going after your stolen people in Gaza, which we saw as a very, very good development, positive development. The attention was on the World Court, but then UNRWA, the UN agency dedicated to the so-called Palestinian refugee problem, they at the very same time when it was published, they snuck out this announcement, we're also cutting ties with 12 UNRWA employees that Israel passed us the information were directly involved in the massacre of October 7th. Well, so it was a powerful, message enough that the media attention also shifted to that. But, simultaneously, when they tried to release it on the very same day that the ICJ just published its interim decision.
It seems like their house of cards is starting to collapse. It seems like quite a few countries have now pledged to freeze funding to UNRWA, right?
Yes.
So
9 or 10 countries now.
Yeah, I think it was
Japan being the latest.
Yeah. I think I saw at least 12, which is really incredible to think that, wow, it only took 100. How many days to get here?
115. Listen,
right?
This UN agency is flawed to its core. Its mere existence is unprecedented. No other group of people around the world has a dedicated UN agency to their so-called refugee problem. And just to remind you, they're educating generation after generation, 5, 6 generation now, that they're refugees of wars that they themselves started. And until when? Until the state of Israel will cease to exist. They are refugees even though they have citizenship in other countries, be it Jordan or even places in Europe. They are refugees even though they were born on Palestinian soil and under Palestinian rule. So it's not about that. And, it has UN in its name and its title, but it's a Palestinian-run agency by Palestinians for Palestinians under the auspices of the United Nations.
The whole United Nations is one big fat joke. Ayatollah Khomeini is cheering it, I think, soon, or is he taking what? Yeah. Are we living in a reality show? It just feels like we're is this real?
A place where Iran can chair the Human Rights Council or exactly.
It's really shocking when you think who's even in that group on the UN Council. Really, they're all one anti-Semite after the other. And how many democracies are on there besides? I find that whole organization to be one big, it's almost like a joke on ourselves that we even give it any power or any attention or any, they spend most of their focus on condemning Israel when we know of the most horrible crimes that are taking place in so many of those countries. And, for the focus to be on Israel is, clearly it's just one big giant anti-Semitic organization that it's just, it's a joke that we even need to give them any,
At the end of the day, UN employees, when you think about that, participated in the massacre of October 7th.
Literally, I was...
And hostages, at least 2 hostages, by the way, according to their account, were being
abducted
held,
by them.
Were being held in houses of UNRWA teachers, the same UNRWA teachers who celebrated in a Telegram chat, 3,000 of them are on this group, the October 7th atrocities. The same, UNRWA textbooks are the ones that these Hamas monsters read as children when they went to these schools and Hamas summer camps. Who are these monsters? What kind of society groomed them? What kind of education did they go through?
And I think this is why peace is so difficult to achieve, because, and people talk about this peace. Jewish people want peace. We love peace. We'll do anything for peace. And I think you say the word peace and it's like, what can we do? We're there. But when the other side is educating their children about how horrible you are and how peace can never come because we don't want to have peace with these people because we just want to kill them, right? That's what they're teaching their children, is that Jews need to be dead. The only good Jew is a dead Jew. And this is how they're being indoctrinated. And as you said, they don't even believe that the state of Israel should even exist, because they're still in their Nakba era, that it's meant to be, we're working on 2-state solutions. They don't want a 2-state solution. They want a 1-state solution.
The final solution.
And the 1 state is a Palestinian state. They don't see Israel in the equation at all. So when people say ceasefire now, and people say peace, they don't understand that, we're not talking about 2 communities, 2 democracies that are looking to live in peace side by side. We're looking at one side who is only interested in peace, and the other side who is not interested. And how can you have peace with someone that wants you dead?
How can you negotiate when someone is out to kill you?
Exactly.
I'll kill you. Okay, kill me halfway.
Right. Right.
No, I mean, that's exactly the point. I mean, you're right. The reason, if the Palestinians wanted a state, they would have had a state a long time ago, because they've had so many opportunities throughout history. Since 1937, with the Peel Commission recommendations and the UN partition plan and the Oslo Accords, at every time, and I can go, until recently, with the very generous offers made by previous prime ministers Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a territorial dispute. It wasn't. For them, the very existence, as you said, of the state of Israel is simply illegitimate. And there's no negotiating around this. And this is why we say that in the day after Hamas in Gaza, and this day after will come, Gaza has to be demilitarized and also de-radicalized. And not only Gaza, the Palestinian society as a whole. Because in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, also internationally known as the West Bank, I should say, according to the Palestinian polling itself, you see that there is 85% support to the atrocities of October 7th. And we know that if elections were to be held there, Hamas would have taken power. So that is exactly what Israel is dealing with, a radical society. And there can be no progress before the right conditions are in place, because otherwise it won't be peace. People can call it peace. People can call it whatever solution they want. But if the right conditions are not in place, if Gaza in the Palestinian society is not demilitarized and de-radicalized, it's not peace. It's not peace if it puts Israel's security in danger. It's simply not peace. And Israel, we know that Israelis want peace. Why? Because we've made peace with many Arab nations in recent years, Muslim nations. And we were on the verge of expanding that circle of peace. That will come. That will come, because many, Arab countries around the region, they might not say it out publicly right now, but they understand that when we take out Hamas, it also serves their interests, not just Israel's interests. It serves regional interests. It's about, the trouble, the chaos that Iran is sowing all across the region.
I want to tell you something. I know that Benjamin Netanyahu had a very close relationship with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Schneerson. And I remember...
He wrote about it in his book.
Yes. He's spoken about it quite a bit too. There are some beautiful videos where he shares some really, really beautiful stories of things that the Rebbe told him and different directives that the Rebbe gave him. And that's why I have faith in Netanyahu, because I know he got directives from the Rebbe, and I hope that he's, keeps to them and thinks about them. But, right after the wars, when the wars that we didn't start, that we won land, and right away there were talks about giving back land, giving back for peace. And the Rebbe was very, very vehemently against it. First of all, about using the words giving back. What do you mean giving back? It was ours to begin with. It wasn't, what do you mean giving back? Giving back to whom? This was our land that's being given away, not giving back. But also, the Rebbe was very, very much against giving any land. The Rebbe said, there's no such thing as land for peace. They do not want peace. Giving land is only going to cause more bloodshed. This is what the Rebbe said. And I remember before Gaza was given away, I was there with my husband less than a week before they gave Gaza. And we were in this beautiful town, this coastal, beautiful area. And it was such an emotional time in Israel, and it was so divided, and people talking about...
In 2005.
It was so divided. People were so sure that this was going to finally bring peace. And then there was the other side that was saying, it's not going to bring peace, and this is our home, and we don't want to give it away. And it was such a turbulent, emotional time. But I remember speaking to people then who were so convinced this is the answer. If this is what we need to do, and we're finally get that elusive dream that we've been dreaming about all our lives. And look what happened.
It's a repeating historic pattern. Every time Israel cut more slack to the Palestinians, made more territorial withdrawals, gave more economic incentives, every time it was answered with more bloodshed, more missiles, more October 7th. Every time. After the Oslo Accords, we got the suicide bombings all over the place, and buses exploding in our towns. We withdrew from the Gaza Strip. What did we get back in return? The missiles raining on our communities for 16 years. We gave more economic incentives, and we allowed in money from Qatar for what's now appears to be fake rehabilitation efforts in Gaza that we wanted, that this money will reach the Palestinian people. And what did we get in return? The October 7th massacre. So that is a repeating pattern. And it is my job to keep reminding, the international media outlets that I speak to during this war. And everyone's asking us about what's your plan for the day after in Gaza. Mm-hmm. I need to remind these things all the time.
Yeah, the day after in Gaza, they need to set themselves up with maybe a proper educational system, a proper government that cares about them, that takes care of them, that isn't hell-bent on terrorism. And people talking about the siege on Gaza, they forget that there's a border with Egypt. It's not really only Israel. They can get whatever they want from Egypt. Why isn't anyone putting any pressure on Egypt? Why is the pressure only on Israel? And I think that if they were able to set themselves up as a proper free society, then they wouldn't have to worry about that border with Israel so much. And Israel would welcome them with open arms, as they have been, giving them visas, giving them jobs, giving them a better life than they have in Gaza. Israel's giving them, more benefits than their own government is. So,
well, many of them know it, but also the ideology that Israel is an illegitimate entity is so much enshrined and so much, rooted in the population and their public ethos, and it's the formula that the prime minister articulated way before October 7th, but I know that it's making the rounds in the media headlines now, after his before the last press conference, is that down the road, the Palestinians should have all of the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers that could threaten Israel. And that is so simple. It is so simple, and it is, the rationale is so, it's very basic, very natural. And many Israelis are united behind this formula right now because there is no other way.
Yeah. So I think the point is that the day after Gaza, or whatever you want to call it, the day after Hamas, the day after the war, let's say, it's really on Gaza. It's on the Gazans it's not on Israel. It's on the Gazans to be able to get themselves together, roll up their sleeves, pick up their socks, do something, show that they're a productive society, that they can live in peace with their neighbors. And I think that if they were able to do that, then everything would change for them. Everything would change.
But that brings me to UNRWA again, and the role of this organization within, every teeny bit of Palestinian lives in Gaza, not only in Gaza, if it's in Jordan or elsewhere. That is one of the root causes right now in the conflict, because it perpetuates on purpose Palestinian victimhood. They are more focused on hurting Israel than building themselves. And, it really occurred to me. I told you that I divide my time between Israel and the United States. And in my last visit to Israel, a day before I took the flight back here, I went with my team to see the big tunnel that was dug nearby the Erez border crossing in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. The one that we released the footage. It was, it is big enough for a vehicle, like a little truck, to drive through it.
Wow.
So we went, you can literally walk from the Erez border crossing. You walk something like 400 meters. You go 40 meters down in the ground. And I was able to see the first part of it. It goes, the tunnel itself is, I think it's 4 kilometers long, but it wasn't secure for us to keep walking there. So we went to the first, to see the very first leg, the very first part of it. And I was standing there and thinking exactly what we are discussing right now, how huge, how fortified this tunnel is with the ventilation pipes, and how strong it was with the cement, with the iron, with, all the resources that were invested in it, the human work, the money, the life work of people. And I'm standing there, like looking around, and this is just one tunnel, just one. And we know of at least 1,500 of them all across Gaza.
Gosh. This
is what they're doing instead of building themselves, as you just said, caring about their own future, because for them, they don't see a future as long as Israel's exists.
Right.
That's how they educate their children.
Right.
And I was standing there, and I'm thinking, what kind of sick ideology one has to have in order to care more about this tunnel than their own lives and the lives of their children. And I told myself, well, it's the same sick ideology at the end of the day that Hitler had when he was already losing the war. The Nazis were already losing the war against the Allies. But they didn't stop the extermination of the Jews. They didn't redeploy their forces to, all of them focus on the war effort, for instance, because killing the Jews was the priority.
Yeah.
So that kind of sickness.
Right. Which reminds me of this incredible event that you were involved with at the UN that I would love for you to tell us a little bit about.
Yes. Well, the event that the Israeli mission to the United Nations threw, I think it was 2 months ago, no, it was rather 2 months after the war broke, focused on the sexual violence of Hamas monsters that they inflicted upon Israeli women on October 7th. And now, unfortunately, we also know that it's also something that they're doing to some of these female hostages who are still being held there in Gaza for more than 110 days now. And we know it by accounts of some of the hostages who came back and they saw some of these women. And they're very limited, the hostages who came back, in what they can say and describe because, human lives hang in the balance. But from the tiny bit of the information that they can share, this is what some of these women told us, that they know for a fact that some of these, our girls, our women, are being physically abused by these monsters. So, as I told you, the news cycle is short, and our problem was to change its rhythm and tell everyone, stop for a moment. You totally overlooked and neglected this fact that rape was used as a method of war in the year 2023. And the same institutions that overlooked this aspect of the war of October 7th are the very same institutions who, allegedly put this in their title, UN Women, at the forefront of their organization. Why did you ignore that? So the UN mission, the Israeli one, it's not invented, the UN through it's the Israeli mission to the United Nations organized that exactly for that reason, to remind the world what happened, because many people out there denied these atrocities, which is unbelievable. And I had the absolute honor, I don't even know how to call it, to MC this event. So I opened this event. In my opening remarks, I said, it was a very powerful event, many powerful speakers, but I said that some of these Israeli women, they were murdered twice. The first time when the Hamas rapists raped them. The second time when they put the bullet in them. And we know for a fact from eyewitnesses that in some instances that happened simultaneously. They already killed the woman as they were still sexually abusing,
their bodies.
A body with, without life. And they were murdered two times, and we said that we will not allow for a third time to take place through neglect and a refusal to acknowledge what happened to them. So that is the reason why we threw this event. And I was, I don't want to say surprised, but I think it was a big success in the sense that media outlets out there and people all around the world started speaking about that. Finally, 2 months after it happened, and UN Women sent people to investigate, and finally some acknowledgement. But it's outrageous that you had the deniers who say, well, this didn't even happen. Then you have the second layer of, I don't want to say bad words here, but who said, well, yes, women were sexually abused, but they were Jewish, they were Israeli. That's the substance of their argument, as if they deserved it,
right?
And then you had some of these organizations who said, well, these are allegations that have to be investigated. That when at the very same time, the same organizations, the same institutions take Hamas's numbers, Hamas's reports at face value.
Right. Everyone walking around with 20,000 murdered, 25,000 murdered. Has that been investigated? Do we have proof for that?
Israel targeted the El Ali hospital and killed 500. You remember that?
Yeah.
In the beginning?
Yeah.
Was a Palestinian missile.
Well, all I can say, Tal, is as I'm sitting here and talking to you and looking at you, I have this one thing going on in my head all the time, is that, unfortunately, tragedy is nothing new to the Jewish people. And it's been something we've experienced from the beginning of time, that, we've been hated, we've been pursued, we've been persecuted. And what is so incredible, though, today is to see you and to see that we have our beautiful sovereign country, Israel, and that we have, today we're not only fighting a war of, it's not only a war of swords, but it's a war of words as well. Right. Unfortunately, in this age of social media and, widespread terrible propaganda that's going on, is that finally we have people like you, and Israel is taking a stand. Jewish people are proud. We have a voice, and we're going to stand up at the UN, and we're going to stand up at any news station that will have us, that, we can have our voices heard. And we are no longer just going to take it sitting down. And that, and I think if there's a silver lining to October 7th, it's that we're finally, Israel has finally decided enough is enough. We are going to do what we need to do, whether you like it or not, whether you voted for or against, whether you're with us or against us. We don't care. We're going to do what needs to be done. And it's about time. It's about time. So I'm so grateful for you, Tal. I'm so grateful that you came here today. I'm grateful for the work that you do every single day on behalf of the state of Israel, on behalf of Jewish people everywhere. You are doing a great job at representing us all. And I wish you so much success. Telchi Michael El Chayil and Am Yisrael Chai. We should just see the greatest miracles the Jewish people have ever seen. We should see the freeing of the hostages now. And every soldier should come home safe and whole and healthy to his family. And we're ready. We're ready for the miracles to unfold.
Amen. Thank you, Hannah. And I'll just add one more sentence to your listeners. Everything that you do matters. If it's something small, if it's something big, if it's a prayer, if it's a donation, if it's just taking care of your families, carrying on in your routine, if it's educating the next generation, and it's all trickling down to the ground, making its impact on the ground in Israel, if it's something tangible or spiritual, remember that it all counts. I'm getting asked very often, Tal, but the PR war is so difficult. We're losing the PR war on social media. So yes, there's the PR arena. That's my job. But we're not fighting this for PR. We're not fighting this war to get better, nicer handshakes at the United Nations corridor. We're not fighting this for likes on social media. We're fighting this war because it's a just war. And we will never, ever go back to being stateless and defenseless again. We're here to live.
Amen.
All right.
L'chaim to that.
Toda.